Welcome, everybody. My name's John Baines, and I'll be emceeing this evening. This is going to be a great night. Let's start with some introductions. I'd like to acknowledge our school board members who are here. Marty Cardona will be making some welcoming remarks in a moment. James Ditzel. James, could you give a wave? Next to Jim is Maureen Knupp. Maureen, and in front is Joyce Kostick. Our other board members are Peter Forsgren, Damon Buffum, and Marilyn Monkelbaum, but we didn't spot them. Oh, there's Marilyn. Hi, Marilyn. She's in the back. Welcome. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our selection committee and ask them to stand. Diane Dudley is our chairperson, who just had surgery, but she's still bravely standing. I'm a member of the committee. Angel Curley is in Texas. God bless her. She's enjoying her retirement. Jim Ditzel again. Jim, if you'd stand, thank you. Carrie DeBose. Joseph Fanagrossi. John Hunter. Susie Meyer in the back. Paul Myers. Tom Polma. Is Tom with us? Tom. Isabella Pasella. It's one of our. There she is. Hey, Isabella. Raise your hand up. She's a student. Renee Santalari. And thank you to our committee for all the work they do. You'll notice on your program that we have the Fairport, I call them the Fairport Acapulco group. It's kind of an intentional malaprop. They were here due to a mix-up and performed earlier. Who was here to hear them sing? Oh, and many of you were. Who'd like to testify? How great were they? Because they were here at 6 and they have to do homework, etc., they performed and they vamoosed. I'd also like to acknowledge our past inductees. I'm going to start with the first inductee who was nominated by our founder, the founder of our Wall of Distinction. The founder was Matt DiRizio, and the first inductee was John Clark. And John, could you give us a big wave from back there? I know you can. And as you see in your program, we have a list of all of our prior inductees, and I'd like those who are present to please stand and stay standing for a second while we can give you a hand. Could you please stand? Prior inductees. Coach Garrett, were you down at the Cortland Ithaca game this week?
No, don't mention it, please.
Okay, all right. We got to get you down there on security. Okay. Two people have been really instrumental in bringing Matt DiRizio's vision to fruition and initiating and sustaining this committee. And one is Diane Dudley. Diane will be serving, this is her last year on the committee. She just had a brand new grandbaby and she's moving on to new adventures in her life. So I want to make a special acknowledgement to Diane for her leadership as the chair of our committee and our organizer and just basically the chief cook and bottle washer for our committee. Diane, thank you. Matt brought his idea to Dr. Hunter, and Dr. Hunter has always been super strong on recognition, and throughout his tenure here, it's been a point of emphasis through all the recognition programs we do, whether it be this program or Dave Paddock Way, our driveway got named after Dave Paddock. So I want to also thank Dr. Hunter for all of his leadership in making this committee run these years and making it happen. And now I'd like to introduce Marty Cardona, our board president.
Thank you, John.
Now I have to do my old principal stuff because I couldn't start without it. Just to remind you, if there's an emergency, the exits are at the back, and there are 2 up here at the front. I just couldn't get on without that, having to be the welcoming person. But welcome to all of you. First of all, welcome to our 7 inductees. We are so delighted to be here with you tonight, and also to the 7 people who will tell your stories, our students. I always look forward to that. It's such a special part of the evening. And welcome also to the family and friends and colleagues of these 7 amazing people, because you stood beside them and next to them and around them, and I'm sure that if we asked them, they would say that you supported them in doing the wonderful things that brought them here to this table tonight. As John mentioned, Matt DiRizio was the founder of this wonderful legacy, and it's such a special gift. I love the fact that this is in November, and I look forward to it every year. It's American Education Week, but I think also it's just that very humble time of year for us in our country as Americans to stop and think about what we're thankful for. And, you know, when you think of the spirit of this particular honor, we are thankful for a person in our school who was doing his or her job and who touched people in a very special way. I think, again, if we asked each of you, you would say that you were just doing your job, but you did that in a way that has or is making a profound difference for those around you. It's so simple, but it's such a part of the fabric of who we are, particularly as the Fairport family, also as a nation. So we're so proud of you for that, and I think it's just so fitting that we take this time to be thankful for you, and I certainly am. We are Fairport family, and then when we started the school year this year, Dr. Hunter told us that it was the year of the story. And as I said, I think one of the richest parts of this evening is when the students tell your stories. So I am going to get out of the way and let them do that after I say to you, on behalf of the Board of Education and certainly the whole Fairport community, thank you for all that you have done. We are so proud of you and delighted to call you family members. Thank you.
Good evening. There are many examples of why Fairport is recognized as a high-quality school district. We are looking at 7 of those examples. And our district is noted as a high-quality district because we are a district where student achievement is our first priority, and it is a collective responsibility. We have high standards and high expectations for all of our students and all of our adults. And in Fairport, we're constantly growing, improving, and celebrating, and succeeding, and growing and improving again and again. This evening's Wall of Distinction ceremonies and these 7 inductees just epitomize exactly why we are a high-quality school district. Student achievement is a collective responsibility. We're looking at 7 individuals, teachers, coaches, staff, administrators, therapists. Each has made a significant contribution to the achievement and the success of thousands of students. Let's talk about high standards, high expectations. Listen to the stories, as Mrs. Cardona said, that are going to be told by these students about our 7 Wall of Distinction honorees. And we're going to hear about not just outstanding achievements, but how lives have changed and the impact these 7 people have had on students and on our community. And the stories will also speak to the high expectations that these people had for themselves. They didn't take the easy route. They expected a great deal from themselves each day, each year, and they raised expectations for all of us and inspired all of us. Simply put, good enough was not good enough. And they were constantly improving and celebrating successes. Our Wall of Distinction celebrating their successes tonight. We're constantly working to improve their craft, their school, their department, our Fairport community. And perhaps most importantly, as you look at these 7 individuals and remember these 7 individuals, they filled our schools and our departments with joy and with love of learning. Inductees tonight, you're leaving a legacy. You've impacted individuals, thousands, their successes and their achievements. And you have established a foundation that Fairport is a high-quality school district, and that part of your legacy will live for generations and students in the future. This is, as Mr. Baines just said, an incredibly wonderful celebration because it epitomizes what these 7 people stand for and our values of what is a quality Fairport education. Congratulations, and thank you for making Fairport a high-quality school district.
Thank you, Dr. Hunter. President Cardona. That sounds good. Each year I make a couple remarks about education itself, and I have for 6, 7 consecutive years. I don't seem to have cleared too much up because the debate about what education should be, needs to be, seems to have not abated much since I weighed in with my thoughts and tried to share some insights into it. And I'm going to try again. It's this work we do, this life, these are lives, these are 7 lives. These lives we live are all about relationships. And those relationships, and I may have said this before, and if you see the past tapes, you can accuse me of self-plagiarism, but I'm not sure I can always be 100% original. I'm not sure if I've ever said this before, I may have, but these relationships are binary. They are one-on-one. A person's in a room with 30 other people, but each of the people in the room is having a one-on-one relationship with each other person. The genius of Matt DiRizio, when he dreamed this dream of the Wall of Distinction, was that the sole criterion is to have affected the life of one person. To have affected the life of one person. And that doesn't sound like Mount Rushmore or anything, but that is the Mount Rushmore of teaching. One person at a time, one child at a time, one relationship at a time. Each of you had affected more than one person, but at the core, that's where it starts. That's the building block of your wonderful careers. You know, I like to think of things on a continuum to try to explain complex ideas to students. And one continuum that I like to use when I talk about education is, and all continua are kind of false because they put things on one line. But for purposes of clarity, you can create a continuum where at one end, education is transactional. You put in, you get out, you work, you receive a reward, you put in the work, get the grade. At the other end of that continuum, education is transformational. 1 + 1 = 3. That magic combustible experience, that binary experience between 2 human beings, makes both human beings better. In Fairport, we have to recognize we live in a world where the transactional aspects of education matter, and they do, and we embrace them. But I also know that we know that this experience for all of us is even more spiritual and more emotionally transforming than a transaction. And we celebrate the transformation of young people through the love and care of our group tonight. That's really what the Fairport family is all about. And so I like to add to Dr. Hunter's and President Cardona's remarks in extending my deepest, deepest congratulations to 7 people with whom I spent a lot of time working. I think a couple of you got hired before I did, but I'm not going to point that out. Maybe a couple. What we will do is each of our student presenters will come forward, and the honoree will come and stand next to each presenter. We ask students to present It's not a haphazard decision because it places in the foreground what we are all about. Dr. Hunter and President Cardona will be presenting the awards, so first we have Barb and Carly come forward, and then each individual will follow. Okay? Thank you.
I am thrilled to be here tonight to honor Ms. Fiala because she has supported me so much throughout the years, and I'm proud to have this opportunity to return the support by honoring her tonight. For the past 25 years, Ms. Fiala has been supporting learners as a teacher assistant at Martha Brown. I had the pleasure of working with Ms. Fiala when I was in 6th grade. Beyond the outstanding support she gave me academically, I so cherished our talks when she shared these stories about her husband, Michael, her children, Kevin, Laura, and Keith, or her grandchildren. And I loved sharing her stories about my own family. She has the impressive skill of making those around her feel comfortable, and she always made me feel appreciated when I shared parts of my own life. Ms. Fiala has definitely enjoyed her time working at Martha Brown. Ms. Fiala told me yesterday to invest time and effort in your job and the people you work with. It is clear she lives by her own advice. As she clearly enjoys her relationship with Ms. Lasham and her Martha Brown family, Ms. Fiala has been supported by Ms. Lasham for over 20 years. As Mary has served as Ms. Fiala's friend, mentor, and inspiration, Ms. Fiala has shared that Ms. Lasham's generosity and creative spirit has helped keep her motivated and energetic. I remember witnessing firsthand Ms. Fiala's energy when she showed up to school one day dressed as Maria and Sally, a fictional character that she is Helen. Remember our math technique, PEMDAS. Ms. Fiala lives by the quote, I also believe it. Where would you rather be than right here, right now? Ms. Fiala, I would rather be no place right here, right now, honoring you tonight for supporting me and 1,000 other kids from Fairport over the years. Your dedication to supporting Fairport learners is much appreciated, and on behalf of many students, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start out with some tears. I can't see, I gotta put my glasses on. Sarah Utz is our next presenter, and she will present our inductee, Patricia Impson.
Okay. It's my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Patty Impson as an inductee for the Wall of Distinction tonight. I'd like to start off with a quote by William A. Ward. The mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, and the great teacher inspires. Mrs. Impson inspired both her students and her colleagues during her 32 years spent in the district. She worked as a French teacher for grades 7 through 12, the lead teacher in the foreign language department, and the coordinator of the IB program. She had an incredibly significant role in the district and touched the lives of many students. Even though she embodies the true spirit of a Red Raider, Mrs. Impson did not grow up in Fairport. She grew up on a Christmas tree farm in the town of Parrish, New York, where she attended Altmar Parish Williamson High School. Her father was the president of the school board, and her house was often the site for contract negotiations. Mrs. Imson graduated in a class of 78 students, just a little smaller than Fairport, and she later got 3 degrees from 3 SUNY schools and ended up teaching in Fairport, which we're all very glad about. Mrs. Imson had many accomplishments throughout her career. In particular, she's very proud of teaching the French language and culture to so many students, and is also very proud of starting the French exchange program at the high school. In addition, she's proud of helping to implement the IB program into the high school and all of the learning that students and teachers did together. During her time at Fairport, Mrs. Imson was the recipient of the FHS Crystal Apple Award and yearbook dedication. However, her most valued recognitions come from the different notes that students and teachers and administrators gave her. With a wonderful career come many memorable experiences. One of Mrs. Imson's fondest memories is watching so many FHS students graduate, including her son and especially all the IB students. Another memorable experience was the French exchange trip following 9/11, in which she remembers a tremendous amount of support and universal feeling of unity. Finally, Mrs. Imson cherishes her 10 years spent at Martha Brown with all of the programs and events that were put together for kids and all of the parties and skits put on for the staff. These few memories are simply scratching the surface of the wonderful times Mrs. Imson has had throughout her career at Fairport. The tremendous success Mrs. Imson has had throughout her career could not have been achieved alone. She would like to thank her husband Brian and son Nicholas for their love and support. She would also like to thank her parents, 3 brothers and sister, who each played a very significant role in her life. Her colleagues in the Foreign Language Department and IB program, fellow FHS teachers, administrators, and all of the students she has taught each impacted her in their own way. Finally, she would like to thank Mrs. Steffer and Mrs. Kearney for nominating her to be inducted into the Wall of Distinction. Mrs. Imson is truly grateful for everyone who has helped her throughout her entire career. A final piece of advice that Mrs. Imson shared was the necessity for optimism and gratitude in finding success. She stated that we need to be positive because while our days can be quite challenging, they are oh so rewarding. In addition, sending notes and reminders of both encouragement and gratitude can be very meaningful and means a lot more to one than one might think. It is impressive to me that Mrs. Imson remains full of passion, energy, and optimism with her life in retirement. Thank you, Mrs. Imson, for all that you have done. You've touched the lives of many, and your achievements will continue to impact Fairport education for many years to come.
Did Mike Barker leave? Okay, I was meaning to recognize Mike. You might not know he's one of our teachers, but he was just elected town supervisor, and I was going to mention that when I introduced you, Mayor. But you tell him? He had to go to a dump meeting. The glamour of politics. Thank you, Sarah. That was lovely. Our next presenter is Rachel Schechter, and she'll be introducing Sandy Jago.
Good evening, everyone. I am honored to be here tonight introducing Sandy Jago as an inductee to the Wall of Distinction. Sandy is a former phys ed teacher at JP. She taught in Fairport for a total of 32 years and is the recipient of many other awards, including Fairport's Crystal Apple Award, the WHAM Teacher of the Week Award, and the Central Western Zone of New York State Association for the Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance Amazing Person Award. Sandy grew up in the countryside in Pleasant Valley, New York, which is near Poughkeepsie. Her family lived near her grandparents' farm, and she and her sister spent a lot of time playing outdoors, sledding on hills, skating on ponds, and playing in barns. In Pleasant Valley, she also attended Arlington Central School District. After high school, Sandy attended undergraduate school at SUNY Cortland, where she earned her degree to become a phys ed teacher. If she hadn't gone into teaching phys ed, she would have gone into the medical field, but teaching was what she knew she wanted to do since she was 12, because she was a very active kid. Even though there weren't many girls' sports teams when she was growing up, she still played sports often. After student teaching at Fairport, Sandy became a phys ed teacher at Joanna Perrin Middle School. Sandy has also served Fairport by coaching varsity girls basketball, modified girls soccer, modified girls basketball, modified girls volleyball, and modified boys volleyball. She also started a girls volleyball class at the rec center that still runs today, which is pretty cool since I used to go to those classes after Mrs. Carr became the instructor. Sandy has made a number of contributions to the JP Phys Ed department, such as receiving mini grants for heart rate monitors, snowshoes, and the low ropes course, and adding adventure curriculum to the Phys Ed program. Also, she worked with Bill Sanford to create Huddle, an anti-drug program open to all students, which was still one of the most popular clubs when I went to JP. Some of Sandy's fondest memories from teaching at JP are seeing her students grow and gain confidence, collaborating with colleagues who truly enjoyed teaching, spending crisp fall days in the woods on the ropes course, and going to Friday morning huddle meetings in the gym. Today, Sandy is still an active educator and continues to be successful. She has supervised phys ed student teachers at Cortland and has served as an adjunct at MCC. Sandy's advice to others is to enjoy what you do and know that you can make a difference. Do the right thing even if it's not popular. Be positive and be a lifelong learner. Sandy would like to thank her mom, dad, all her colleagues in Fairport, and her partner Maureen for their support, Bessie Fletcher for mentoring her as a student teacher, Jean Jacoby for being the best teaching partner anyone could ask for, and Molly McCarthy for her nomination. Finally, she would also like to say congratulations to all the other honorees. And I would like to thank Sandy for all that she has done for the Fairport community and her resounding impact on all of us.
What an incredible 32 years.
Thank you. Hey, John.
Thank you, Rachel. Our next presenter is Brian Brancato, and he's presenting Mr. Tom O'Rourke. If you guys could come forward. Tom, when he was inducted into the Section 5 Basketball Hall of Fame, they let him speak. And if I recall, the evening went on for about 2 hours. Tom and I played a lot of ball against each other back in the day.
Yes, we did.
He beat me up. Brian?
Enjoyed it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian. I'm honored tonight to present, to induct Mr. Tom O'Rourke tonight. Mr. O'Rourke grew up in Webster with his mother, father, and brother Bill. He grew up around a lot of basketball, played a lot of basketball as a kid. He eventually went on to Potsdam, where he earned his degree to become a teacher. He taught at Northside School as a math teacher for 35 years, after 2 years, 1 year at Dudley and another at Northside. He really enjoys working with younger children. And just from speaking to him, honestly, he's one of the most patient, kind, very humble people that I've gotten the opportunity to talk to. Most people would say that one of their proudest accomplishments is some big flashy thing. But Mr. O'Rourke says that his proudest accomplishment is that his love for teaching on his last day after 37 years of teaching was just as strong as his first day of teaching. And I think that's really incredible, because to stick with something for that long of your life. He would like to thank a number of people in his life: his family, his wife Carol, his 4 children, his brother Bill, and as well as all of the people who he's worked with throughout the years, including Mike McGee and Jackie Wampler, who were his first mentors, Gary Dunton and Kathy Edmonds, who were his first principal and assistant principal, who nurtured him and taught him about becoming a teacher. He also says that he learned a lot from Mrs. Erin Moretter in his last few years of teaching, and I also think that's pretty interesting. It's not that funny. That's another thing that I think is incredible about Mr. O'Rourke is that he believes that you can just keep learning. I mean, he has taught people his whole life, young children, but he's also learned from kids. He's learned from his younger mentors instead of just learning from people above him, and I think that's really cool. So, congratulations.
Hey, buddy. There is a bit of a theme of age going on here as I put my glasses on. I just love our student presenters. Aren't they awesome? And we're thrilled to have 3 more presentations. Emily Slifkin will be inducting Ann Polma.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Slifkin, and I'm here to introduce to you Ann Polma. I already knew that Mrs. Polma was cool because she has a daughter named Emily, which is a pretty great name if you ask me, but I may be biased. The background of Ann Polma is a little different than most in Fairport. She grew up in Louisiana, went to college in the South, but her roommate was from Penfield, which is how she became acquainted with the Rochester area. She decided that after living in the South her entire life, she thought it would be interesting to live and work in the Northeast. She was going to stay in New York for 1 or 2 years, but despite the obvious weather change, Mrs. Polma loved working and living in the Fairport School District, so she never left. Currently, Mrs. Polma is a school social worker at Dudley and at the Special Education Office, although she has worked at all 8 schools in the district, which I found to be very impressive. She helps students and their families to succeed in school and realize their goals. This really spoke to me because I also have a passion for kids with special needs. This is her 29th year in Fairport and 32nd year as a school social worker. Some of her past projects have included being the Dignity Act coordinator for Dudley, serving on the Dudley crisis team, as well as the response to intervention team. She has no thoughts of retirement yet. Every year she sets 5 more years, and it is so admirable that she wants to keep on working for Fairport, and that should be a testament to what a great district we have. Throughout her time in Fairport, Mrs. Polma has made a positive influence on many of those whom she has worked with. Her proudest accomplishments involve hearing from her students years after she got to know them, as well as their parents, and learning about their accomplishments. Some of her former students have even gone into the education or mental health fields themselves. Mrs. Polma's fondest memories come from the community pulling together and helping each other out during times of loss, as well as celebrating student success in various areas such as academics, sports, and the arts. She mentioned to me how great it is that we have our jazz band that is so well appreciated, which her daughter and I played in together, as well as have access to great teachers such as Mr. Tiberio. Mrs. Polma has also worked with social work graduate and undergraduate students from area colleges and has seen the impact they have had on Fairport students. Most importantly, her best memories involve individual students overcoming obstacles to achieve their goals, whether it is no longer being anxious to come to school or obtaining a high school diploma. Over the years, she has received personal thank you notes from students, parents, and colleagues, which have meant so much to her. She views these notes as her little everyday awards and recognitions. She keeps them in a folder and looks at them when she has a hard day at work, and she suggests that others do the same. Mrs. Polma would like to thank Katrina Levan for nominating her for this honor, as well as the students, parents, and coworkers that supported her nomination. She would also like to thank the other recipients of this honor for inspiring her, as well as past recipients such as Mrs. Tandoy and Angel Curley for being inspirations. A thank you goes out to all of her administrators, and reportedly there have been a lot of them, and especially Kevin Ratcliffe and Neil Muchler for hiring her 28 years ago, and making herself believe that she could achieve her goals on her own in a new town without any help from local connections. She would like to thank her parents who are watching from online in Texas, as well as her siblings. As for her family, she wants to thank her husband, Tom, who is a member of the Wall Distinction Nominating Committee, but did not vote for her. She made that very clear to me. And her children, Eric and Emily, for understanding her passion for her job, including the time it takes and becoming very self-sufficient as a result. I know her daughter, Emily, and I can tell you she did a great job raising her while still working hard for the district. Most importantly, she would like to thank the students and families who let her into their lives and worked with her, even during difficult times. Finally, Mrs. Poma gives us this advice. She says to find a career that you're passionate about, always be willing to do more than you have to, especially when it comes out to helping others, and try to understand and respect other people's perspectives, because different people have different definitions of success. You can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Dr. Seuss. She truly believes that everyone is trying their best to achieve their goals and dreams. She feels so privileged to have had the opportunity to work in Fairport for the past 28 years and to have both of her children educated in the district. She feels honored to be given this award, and she really deserves it. I know Mrs. Poma is someone I look up to and aspire to be like. Thank you.
Is absolutely correct.
And congratulations. Our next, now you're not seeing double here. If you're looking at the program, our next presenter is Al Shire III, and he'll be presenting Al Shire Jr.
Good evening. I have the honor in introducing my father tonight. Al Shire has worked for the Fairport Central School District from 1990 to 2013. In those 23 years, he has served the district in many different capacities. He has been an assistant principal, co-chair of the district emergency response team, and a summer school principal. His proudest accomplishments in education was the connections he built with his students and staff. My dad always tried to make Martha Brown feel like one big family. I believe he accomplished this. I witnessed this with the staff showing him their appreciation at his retirement celebration. Another accomplishment he is really proud of was receiving the Middle School Schools to Watch designation. Many hours were put into receiving this award, and my dad was so happy for the students and staff to be recognized for all their hard work. Some of his fondest memories in Fairport were participating and bringing to life with activities such as Civil War days and medieval fair days, and the numerous 8th grade trips to Washington. He helped chaperone. Growing up in Deer Park, Long Island, Al then went to SUNY Oswego, where he received his Bachelor of Science in Industrial Arts education. He attended SUNY Buffalo, receiving his master's at the end of his schooling. At SUNY Brockport, he received his Certificate of Advanced Studies. In his first teaching position in West Valley, a small rural community south of Buffalo, my dad held many positions. He was an industrial arts teacher as well as a junior class advisor, student council advisor, and even track coach. He also covered as school nurse and even drove a bus for half the year. I have always been impressed by my father's work ethic. He would stay countless nights working late and would always be available to any staff or students that needed help. My dad spent many hours throughout the summer putting together student schedules and making sure that it was the best possible schedule for each student. It was always very important to him to create the best possible learning environment for every student. My dad was great at making personal connections with students. I enjoyed watching him as he presented fire safety information in the Home and Careers class at Martha Brown. Not only would he be at the school working, but he would also be responding to fire calls. He has been a part of the fire department for 30 years. The reason I looked up to my father is his relentless effort to put others before himself. My dad will do anything that is needed to be done. Every concert, play, or performance held by the school he attended to support his students. I always wondered how he managed to do all the things he did. Even with all the time put into the school district and fire department, he still somehow had enough time to make it to all my soccer games and ultimate frisbee games and nag me about my homework. I'm so proud to be here tonight presenting him as he is inducted into the Wall of Distinction. Congratulations, Dad.
I asked Al if he would present his dad. He's one of my students. He wasn't in any position to say no. But you know, Al, I'm going to confess to you that I did that because I am a TK as well. How many people in here, how many of you, if you are teachers' kids? Yeah, John is. And it's a beautiful thing to be, but not always beautiful. And I was thinking how much I would have liked to have inducted my dad into this, and that's what I was thinking. So it was a little unfair, wasn't it? Yeah. I know Al was worried, but Al, you did a beautiful job, and thank you. Our final presenter this evening is Alex Lapointe, and Alex is such an accomplished swimmer that he just rushed over here from a swim event or a swim recognition practice, so that's not mousse, that's chlorine in his hair. And Alex will be presenting our good friend Jim Sluzarski.
So yeah, as was just said, I just came from swim practice, so I apologize for my appearance. I might be the only one in here wearing sneakers, actually, so I apologize for that straight off. But it's not really about me, is it? It's about it's all about Jim Sluzarski right here, so I'll give you some background on his past first. He grew up in Syracuse, New York, and we were actually born at the same hospital, a few years apart. Yeah, so born in Syracuse, New York, and he attended 3 different high schools, a Baptist school, CBA, and a military school. Then after his high school days, he attended Hobart, where he met his wife, and then went to Brockport for his graduate degree. So before retiring 12 years ago, Mr. Slew was a 7th and 8th grade social studies teacher at Martha Brown Middle School. He was also a coach for lacrosse, football, and wrestling. He actually started the lacrosse program, but I'll get to that later. He began his career in 1968 here at Fairport, during which he saw many successes. I'm sure he didn't really tell me all of them, but these are the ones he gave me, so let's go through these here. He taught at Martha Brown for 33 years. He was involved in the first Washington, D.C. trip that Martha Brown took with their 8th grade class. He was involved in Civil War Day, which was mentioned earlier. And he got his students involved in a National Geographic geography contest, which was the first of its kind, and he was very proud of getting his students involved in learning about geography. And of course, teaching at Martha Brown for 33 years is also a great accomplishment for him. And like I said, started the lacrosse program in 1969, and it has grown tremendously since then. He said they weren't very good when he started, but obviously he has a lot to be proud of now. If he had not become a teacher, he would have wanted to work for the Department of Environmental Conservation because he loves to fish and hunt. And he actually volunteers at Wild Wings, where he works with various kinds of birds. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Some of Mr. Slew's fondest memories here at Fairport are when he rode his motorized scooter through the halls of Martha Brown, which he won from competing at on the game show The Wheel of Fortune. So And then another one is when on his final day of teaching at their last day of school ceremony, he looked at the superintendent's face when fellow co-workers hoisted him up on their shoulders, started chanting their name. I think Mr. Garrett was involved in that. Is that right? Then another memory of his is kind of the ongoing memories of seeing the students that he's taught become teachers themselves, go into a career that he cares so much about. He doesn't regret a single thing. He just loves education, and that's so inspiring. Some awards and recognitions that Mr. Slew has received are the annual Crystal Apple Award, and he was also inducted into the Western New York Lacrosse Hall of Fame. Mr. Slew would like to thank a few people for all the successes that he's seen. The first is his father, who told him, "What are you going to do, son?" when he was in college, which led him to teaching, so. And then another group of people he'd like to thank was his first team of teachers at Martha Brown, who really helped him develop as a person and really kind of defined the word team for him. Those people were Bob Parmiter, Kathy Campbell, and Doug Wheeler. Also, he would like to thank his wife, Sue, for all of her patience and support. I don't know where she is, but... So obviously, Mr. Slew has had an extremely successful career. So some pieces of advice that he'd like to share are solve the little problems first, and then usually the bigger problems will fall into place after that. Then more specifically, for anyone going to be a teacher or interested in education, that you really have to love kids. And I could tell when I met him yesterday that he really did love kids and loved his job and every little bit of it, and he doesn't regret a single moment of it. Well, getting to know Mr. Slazarski was a great pleasure yesterday, and I feel like I have been touched like many of the students that he's taught. So, congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Alex. Good job. Outstanding for all that you did. Thank you very much. That's nice. Thank you. Thanks.
I don't know on the way.
God bless you. Thanks, John. Thanks.
Before we draw our ceremony to a conclusion, everyone is invited to the actual physical wall of distinction. When we exit this room, we'll go that way toward the west and then go down the first corridor, down 2 ramps. If you're not familiar with the high school, we'll then be down in the gymnasium auditorium area. And there in the foyer outside the auditorium is the actual wall of distinction where you can see the plaques of our current inductees and our former inductees. Before I have the pleasure of introducing our final comments from Mayor May, I'd like all of the 7 beautiful children of God who are with us tonight to stand. Please stand. Stay standing. And I would like the 7 beautiful children in God in front of them to please stand also. Congratulations. Thank you. You know, I'm so proud of our school district. I have been a teacher here for 36 years myself, and each of our schools has its own beauty, and here we had a number of schools represented, but there was a theme that a lot of Martha Brown leaders were inducted tonight, and I was reflecting on Martha Brown, the school. I never knew Martha herself. Although actually a number of people did. Yes, I guess she was a tremendous educator. And Martha Brown is an unusual school in that it's very philanthropic. They have raised more money you might not know this, they've raised more money at Martha Brown. I don't even know if we can keep track anymore. Dave, do we have an idea? We're keeping track. Is it, there's a wing up at Golisano that they've raised $250,000 for charities in the community, and there's just a thing about Martha Brown, service, and I don't mean to single Martha Brown out. I guess I just did. But it just struck me because we have four of our 7 inductees from Martha Brown, but we're very proud of all of our schools, obviously. So I'd like to introduce our final speaker, Shock. He spent a lifetime in teaching. He was married to is married to a wonderful woman named Georgia, who spent a lifetime in teaching. And it's interesting that his skills as a teacher, which, by the way, he also has great skills as an artist, carpenter. If you go by his house on Main Street, how many guys know where the mayor lives? How many guys know where the mayor? Check out his handiwork. He built that garage. The door to his house, you think I'm getting you in trouble by telling people where you live? Yeah. You designed the door. I thought you built it. Okay, well, it's beautiful. Fritz is an artist. He's an organizer. He runs the best farmers market in upstate New York. He, as mayor, he segued from being a teacher into being a mayor, and it turns out that the skill set of teaching at a high level and serving the community at a high level, who knew? We knew, are a very, very tightly aligned skill set. We are absolutely delighted to have as our closing speaker, Mayor Fritz May.
John makes this a little bit difficult. First of all, John, I want to thank you for inviting me tonight. Secondly, I'd like to tell you Martha Brown was my math teacher. That was back at the West Avenue School, by the way. I just want to say thank you to these 7 speakers. I'm impressed every time I hear the students get up and represent the inductees. The grace, the composure, the ability to speak in public is a real skill and a real art, and it's going to set you up for life. It doesn't matter how good you are, if you can't speak to people, you're at a real handicap. So you people are all in fantastic shape. Thank you very much. Well, it's always my pleasure to be able to come here and witness and participate in the induction of our honorees into the Wall of Distinction. I always look forward to that. As John said, education has been a major part of my life. I taught for 34 years and would have taught longer if New York State hadn't have given these wonderful financial incentives to retire. I just found it to be personally an extremely satisfying job, and I also worked up until the last day. As a matter of fact, they threw me out because I was finishing up summer school and they had to start fall. You know, they didn't postpone it for me. And it was one of those things. I was an art teacher, taught ceramics and sculpture, and when we moved from Arl Thomas to Schrader, where I spent my last 4 years, I had 8 trailer truck of my own that went up there. I don't know if that was good or not, but it certainly was what I had. I really loved teaching and left it and went into government. I've been in government a long time, but I became mayor after that and found, just as John said, the skills are very much the same. They're all people skills, and that's what we need as teachers. When you heard the stories that were given tonight, it's exactly what we think education should be. It's the dedication, the compassion, the touch, respect, all of the things that you need to make young people grow are what I was hearing tonight. So I just sat there shaking my head as all those different speeches were presented. Well, anyway, right now, the great part about the mayor's job is I'm teaching local government to 5th grades. And so I'm still teaching. We've done this for Brooks Hill for a lot of years. And this year, Jefferson Avenue and Northside are coming to us. So we're teaching local government to 21 classes this year. So, and it's a great experience for me, and I think the kids are getting a lot out of it as well. I just wanted to tell you one story about a young person I had as a student a long time before I retired. But Tom was a very polite, not this Tom, a very good-looking young man, and had a lot of potential. But this particular Tom was rebelling against society, and he often came to my class stoned. Working with him was extremely difficult and not easy, obviously. And we tried, and we went as far as we could, but there weren't many days when he wasn't under the influence. He didn't graduate from high school, so there he was, sort of adrift. Anyway, one morning I left the gym and stopped at Panera Bread Company to get a cup of coffee and a pastry, which is probably what you shouldn't do after you've done a workout. But I did, and I often do. And as I was walking back to my truck, I heard a woman's voice yelling out, "Mr. May, Mr. May." And turned out I didn't know who she was. It seemed that she was Tom's mother, and she had come out to tell me what an influence I had been on her son. Who would ever know? You know, I had no idea I was making any headway with him, but apparently it did. So what it proves is you always have to do the very best you can, jump over any obstacles that are there, because you never know what effect anything you do is going to have in the long term. Well, that was extremely satisfying to me, and those are good. As you people keep going, you'll run into more and more of your students. Airports, on the street, Europe, all over the place I found them. But the rewarding part is they come up to you, they remember you, and they come up and they tell you how much they enjoyed you, how much they learned from you, how much what you taught them they're using today. That's very rewarding, and I think that is the plus side of teaching that no other profession can have. I think it's the best job I ever could have had. So I've been rewarded, and each of you has made the same kind of significant contribution to education. That was obvious tonight. And I'm glad, I don't know how many other schools do this sort of induction. Anybody else do this? Well, I'm certainly glad that my alma mater does this, because I think it's a great honor for all of you. So we're happy for you. So I've learned about all of you this evening, and I've enjoyed learning that information. I'll just finish telling a little tiny story about this Tom. And it's good, Tom. It's short. It's just that I've known Tom since he was a freshman at R.L. Thomas High School in Webster. I worked with his dad, Bill, worked with his brother, Bill. I didn't have Tom in class, but we all knew Tom because he was so active in sports, like his father and like his brother. And so we always knew what Tom was doing. But if you knew his father and know his brother, you understand why Tom turned out to be such a great person. It was a family that had all kinds of integrity, and there's no choice but to turn out to be a good person. So glad to have known you, Tom. Okay, so with that, I would just like to say congratulations. It's an honor to know you. It's an honor for you to be inducted. Congratulations.
I'd like to invite everybody again to come down and congratulate our inductees, and then if you could exit and move out to the right, we'll meet you down. And I think we might even have a cookie. Do we have a cookie? And we want to get a picture of all of you guys for the paper, too, so don't dodge us. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.